I would say that pretty much everybody who is watching this has heard of the latest version of so-called artificial intelligence, which is generative AI. And anybody who's working in business, public organizations, education, the third sector is going to be telling stories about how they have used products like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Grok, DeepSeek, Copilot, some of the more prominent versions of generative AI, and you would have used it to have conversations. And I've heard people literally with the wow factor saying how they use it all the time now to get advice. They use the language of talking to it, and it is very much a kind of anthropomorphized, or putting a kind of human element onto it. So it listens, it gives me advice. Sometimes it doesn't seem to listen very well. It makes mistakes. And that language has come in a long time ago with computers. But it's particularly pertinent now because generative AI uses natural language processing. And so when you prompt it, when you ask it to do things, ask it questions, seek advice from it, the language that comes back very much feels like it's from a human being. And that's at the heart of what I just wanted to briefly talk about now. And this is going to be a little bit of a gentle philosophical takedown of generative AI as being anything like intelligence, and particularly artificial intelligence somehow equating with human intelligence. And I just want to introduce two concepts that you may or may not have heard before. They're very much related, and they particularly encourage you, therefore, to scrutinize, to be a bit wary of artificial intelligence and the hype that goes around it being somehow equated with what human intelligence is. And that's not to diminish what AI, as it's currently called, might be able to do for us as an assistant, but the idea that somehow we're getting very close to AI being at least equal, if not better than human intelligence, well, I think just listen on for a little bit. It's not going to be very long. And the two words that I want to introduce to you are exherency and inherency. And the bit of those two words you might know is the word inherent. Something can be inherently good. Somebody could have an inherent ability to listen or to be intuitive. You might walk into a room and say, you know, it looked very nice, it was very designed, it was very positive, but there was something inherently wrong in the room, and I don't know what it is. And inherency can often be quite mysterious. So if exherency is, I'm sitting in a room right now, and you can absolutely say exherent things about this room. It's a teaching room. There are tables, there's a screen, there are windows looking outside. It's exherently these dimensions in terms of square meters. It's got a certain temperature. It's got quite bright lights here, which some people don't like, some people do. It's got a number of computer screens with keyboards attached to them. There's a number of plugs. You might exherently say that this is a good place to learn. It's been designed for learning. And that's all about exherency. You could then look at me and say he's clearly male, he's clearly happy or unhappy. You know, there's a silly smile. And already when you get that smile, well, exherently, you might conclude from that I'm smiling, so I'm happy, but you might look into my eyes or just get a sense of, yeah, but that smile is hiding something. And that could be inherent. And sometimes your instincts might just lead you to say to me, are you okay? And I might say, well, actually, I'm putting on a brave face, but I'm a bit unhappy. And you might not be able to tell that from any of my language. My language might be perfectly normal because I'm a good actor. And it can be harder to pick up the inherent qualities of somebody if they're a very good exherent actor. And we play roles in business all the time. And sometimes we're not even aware of what we're really feeling. And that can be revealed through other people. And it comes from that, are you okay? And sometimes all the exherent signs say one thing, and it might just be, and some people would say there are certain exherent signs that are very tiny, but they're exherent in that they're outer, we can see them, and that everything is exherent. And anything inherent is just a tiny sign we're not picking up. I'd like to suggest that that's not the case, and that as we go through our life, it's inherency that's really, really important. It's there in medicine, where we might give you tablets to get rid of a headache, and you might even show that somebody's headache has got pain in their head, but the tablets don't work, and that's when, of course, it may well be that we can't pick this up exherently because the headache comes from somewhere very mysterious. It might simply be to do with an unresolved issue in someone's life, and the headaches might go away by changing certain aspects of our exherent lifestyle. And we don't pick up on why the headache went away. It could be that, just to say, a question is answered, and then suddenly we feel better. It could simply be that the impact of a city on us, on our inner psyche, on our soul, you might even want to use that language, is deep down inside us, and we can't quickly pick up on it. Now, whether that is still exherent, and I say that because if you've got a very kind of materialistic, exherent view of life, it's hidden. It's not something we can pick up, and while it's at least hidden and mysterious, it's inherent and doesn't become exherent until we kind of solve the problem. And that's the problem with so-called AI. AI can ask you all kinds of questions. It's been trained on a lot of exherent data, maybe some inherent data in the form of poetry and people's diaries and stuff, but the amount of exherent data is much, much greater, and therefore it has a bias toward answering exherently. And so unless we dumb ourselves down, unless we simplify what we do, unless we role play that everything is exherent, we have a problem with AI. And we've had a problem with social media for a while, which only allows the thumbs up on most social media platforms, not even a thumbs down, but it's a smiley. Now, you can start to use other smileys now. They've grown. The emoticons have got neutral faces, all kinds of stuff. But all of them still are just trying to get at what is actually subtle and nuanced and mysterious inside us. In books like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, here we're talking about the quality of quality. It's the gap between the ones and zeros, if we put that in a sort of literary way. So I'm saying two things here particularly. I guess one value set or belief system suggests that inherency uses words like our soul, our essence, our qualities that are subtle and nuanced and mysterious. And an exherent view of inherency is it's simply only a matter of time before we can pick it up. We can find out what's inherent because it's all exherent. It's just maybe smaller and tinier and more subtle. But the problem for AI is even with, we've currently got literally trillions amount of data, it's very, very poor at picking up exherency. And so when it often guesses answers, and you may have had this, it might say, I can see you're frustrated. And you're not feeling frustrated, you're just feeling curious, or you don't even know why you're responding in a particular way. And that means that you have very simplistic conversations, and it can leave questions unanswered, partly answered. It can leave the real richness of our lives unaddressed by AI. And so what we end up with are approximate conversations, guessed conversations, guessed answers that are, of course, AI gambling at what might be true. And it's quite good at gambling at quite an exherent level, but it's really poor at gambling at an inherent level. So as you use what is a very hyped up approach at the moment called generative AI, and we're getting close to artificial general intelligence, and I've just had ChatGPT 5.1 land on my desk, which apparently is much faster and better than the previous one. Well, I hope so, because the previous one, even the OpenAI, the people that created it, had to admit it was worse, and they didn't really know why, than the ChatGPT, I think was 4.0. That's because so-called AI and the people that are coding it and developing it quite often have absolutely no idea that inherency exists, that often it is playing into our conversation and our lives much more tellingly and really than exherent conversation. So we can collude with that by becoming simple ourselves and role-playing a more exherent or simple version of ourselves. But if you want the full diversity, richness and mystery of your own experience, we're just going to have to accept that AI just isn't up to the task.